Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lax rats alike, welcome back to another episode of the Crease Dive. Today is Sunday, September 8th. Might also be Monday, September 9th. Who knows? Who cares? Because all that matters right now is that we are down to the final two teams of the PLL season. PLL semifinals came and gone. We had one of just an all-time classic game when we had one that was a all-time, I guess you could call it infamous game. I'm Jordy from Barstool. With me, as always, we've got Dukes on the mic. We've got Ness on the mic. And maybe for the first time ever, we're coming at you live with three guys whose favorite football teams are currently 1-0. Eagles get the job done in Brazil. Patriots take down the Bengals. Ness and the Steelers and those terrible Tal and those disgusting Yinzers take down the Atlanta Falcons and Kirko Chains. Boys, everyone's 1-0. We were treated to two great lacrosse games last night, each for different reasons. You guys were both treated to seeing Sammy Adams live in person. So What a weekend for everyone. How you boys feeling?
Hungover, tired, doing the podcast in my childhood bedroom right now, like in the bed. Like I'm laying down in bed. That's how I'm feeling. Absolutely shredded of a weekend. It was great though. Long day of lacrosse, great. Like Sammy Adams live. 15-year-old me was fucking pounding my fist. But great weekend at Hofstra. Great crowd, great atmosphere. It was very fun.
It was absolutely electric. I couldn't have had more fun at the Sammy Adams concert if I tried. Not a big concert guy, so I felt like I got like a little private show there for first time ever seeing a rapper perform live. Someone who could spit those bars. And then the first lacrosse game was an absolute treat. Probably the best professional lacrosse game I've ever watched in person, and certainly up there as one of the best lacrosse games I've ever seen with how the ending went. So I had a great weekend. Also, hungover as hell.
Yeah, that was just the Atlas Whips game. One, it was the best professional atmosphere at Hofstra that I've been to. And I think moving it from Sunday, the semis, to Saturday, where Long Islanders don't really care about college football. And, I'm not saying that maybe you couldn't get the games on ESPN and you could only get them if it was on Sunday. But having that atmosphere for Saturday and having those games on ESPN Plus, I think was a very, very smart move. I mean, that overtime, you could just feel like for the first three quarters, it didn't feel like a home game, but then slowly it became like a sick home atmosphere. And you've seen that a lot in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would say like one for starters. So I don't know any of the numbers, so I don't know what the what the broadcast viewings are like, but I don't really give a shit about any of that. Like it seemed like it's obviously a crowd for a pro lacrosse game still not going to like blow your dick off, but it seemed like you could feel energy from the stadium. And then especially in that overtime, like listen, I'm a Water Dogs guy because they're a Philly team, but like I still really haven't had many moments over the what do we have now? 5 years of the 6th year of the PLL. Like I haven't had many moments where like I feel like my heart is in my chest to where I'm like, oh my God, like whatever this result is going to be like dramatically impact how I feel like emotionally, physically, spiritually. That overtime was one of those moments where like my heart was just like in my throat. Like I could like feel the whole thing. It was coming through on the TV. Obviously just, the moment itself was huge. Yeah. What a game. And really for me, unexpected with the way that game started. It seemed like, the way that it got going, where one, Jeff Teat right off the bat, bingo, bango, like no rust there. Best lacrosse player in the world getting it going. Their offense looked great. Whip Snakes scored a couple goals, but then you get Trevor Baptiste putting in 3 points in the span of like 4 seconds, which has to be a record. Like there's no way that's not a record. Like I think Dan Aresi kind of said something similar, but like there's just no way it's possible that anyone has ever had 3 points in 4 seconds. Like how many other face-off guys are chucking 2 bombs like that? Right. So, the fact like that got going, you were like, all right, like this is we talked about a lot about the Atlas coming off of a bye, how that hasn't played out well for them each of the last 2 times previous in the season. And you're like, all right, this is the time where this team finally turns it around and they just curb stomp the Whips. And then after that, they just never really got themselves in any position to really pull away from that game. Credit to the Whips, like credit to Krebs, really locking in there after a few shaky goals to start off the game. Krebs gets himself going. That defense starts to lock it down, and quarters 2 through that overtime, just unreal back and forth lacrosse.
I said this last night. Close game all throughout. Atlas have a great offense, so I don't want that to be taken away from what I'm about to say. But those Trevor goals, not that they were cheap goals, they're goals. It wasn't good offense, right? Where the Whip Snakes, I felt like played better offense throughout the entire game. So that was one of my that 3-goal swing kept the Atlas in the game for a while. That gave them what, a 6, I don't know if the 6-3 leak.
No, so I get how big those goals were. Like, I don't know if when I look at a bad offense, one, we'll talk about the chaos a little bit later, but like I look back at that Cannons game where they lost to the chaos, and that was an offense where they just couldn't get anything going because it seemed like their spacing was all over the place. They just never got any good look. I thought the Atlas offense, they were still getting good looks. They were finding good skip passes on the back door, a lot of good looks inside where they could have put a few more in the back of the net, but Krebs, credit to him, stood on his head. And I think I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that the offense for the goal scoring when they just got cold shooting the ball. I thought that the offense was fine.
Yeah, that's fair.
Besides that last possession, the final possession of regulation, absolute dog shit. One of the worst possessions in lacrosse. I will give you that one.
My main point was more not Atlas playing bad offense, but more so that the Whip Snakes played more consistent offense throughout the entire game.
Yeah. That was more where that because when they started closing in the second half, and at one point I think the Atlas might have had a 2 to give them that 2-goal lead, and then. Right, if I remember, the beers were called. Yeah, it was a Costabile bomb.
And it was for 2, and that was their first goal of the second half. And at that point, it was oh my god, wow, crazy. That's their first goal of the second half. It almost felt like a backbreaker for the Whip Snakes. So just the entire game back and forth. And you're totally right. That overtime, the more the overtime went on, the larger the lump in the throat felt.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it was the Atlas only put the ball in the net twice the whole second half. So I kind of see where Duke is coming from with the consistency of the offense. I honestly thought both defenses just played really well. But definitely in the second half, the offense for the Atlas went absolutely silent. I mean, they went scoreless in the third, and then they scored 2 early in the fourth, and then don't score a goal the rest of the game. So 5 minutes in the fourth quarter and then 9 minutes in overtime. That's another 14-minute stretch without a goal. So, I mean, I think that's where the Atlas just – when you have the highest powered offense in lacrosse and it's not high powering, that's when you're going to see a game like that where you kind of just let it squeak away.
Yeah, and what I think kind of really started to happen for – I don't know. I'm trying to think back on it right now. It just feels like – It feels like as the game got a little bit deeper, the Atlas started following more of that Whip Snakes, all right, let's just hit single. I'm looking back at that last possession, the final possession. They call a timeout. They probably have 30 seconds to go in regulation. Not a great second half by them. They only, like you said, they only put the ball in the back of the net twice in that second half. And end of the game. I just feel like this Atlas team, the way that this offense works, you shouldn't really be waiting to just hit singles. The way that this offense works is they just they're always looking for a home run. And for the longest time during the regular season, they were hitting these home runs. That last possession, they waste 22 seconds of the clock just kind of getting set up to make sure that they could take the last shot of regulation. Not really I get it if you're the Whip Snakes, that's your mantra, that's been your mantra the whole time. Not a huge fan of the Atlas going to that. Like, hey, like let's play conservative here and then just get the last shot. Kind of the same way in overtime too. Like there were a couple times in overtime where I thought both teams could have really pushed it in transition a little bit more instead of being like careful, being like, all right, like I don't want to piss away this possession in overtime. Like let's get down there, let's get settled in, let's try to get into our offense. I think when you're in an overtime, like I get you want to value the ball, but at the same time, it's like your best chances are the most chaotic situations when you're in that transition. And I thought that the Atlas probably there were a couple times where they could have taken advantage of that. Instead, they don't. They let the Whip Snakes, sub all their guys on. Now you're playing 6-on-6 against a team who's been playing some really good 6-on-6 defense, a goalie who's been seeing the ball really well, 6-on-6. Could have pushed it in transition, maybe had some better luck. I get the Whip Snakes kind of holding back a little bit on doing that because that's, their whole thing for the whole 6 years of the league has been hit singles. So, I mean, especially like Ness, you're a goal. So you're looking down the other end of the field. What are you thinking there? Like, do you want the boys to kind of take control of the ball a little bit, give your defense a breather? Do you want to see if they can push it a little bit? I'm sure it's a little bit of both.
In overtime, I'm with you. Like I'm a big believer in transition goals, like one of the easiest goals on the cross, like without a doubt, especially at the pro level. They just whip that ball around so quick. It's like I'm begging my team, like if we get it out, like go, like take it, even if it's like the smallest 4-on-3 or the smallest 5-on-4, like use your numbers and go. The part I want to play a little devil's advocate of is the end of the game. I feel like, yeah, they definitely waited a little too long, and then you would really only get one look. But it's kind of like in basketball where it's like, even if that look sucks, you don't want to take a shot early. And if you do miss it, or if you score and then give the other team a chance to go and end the game, like I think it is risky to push too early. But I totally agree with you in the transition. Like, especially as a goal, you want to see that ball just get the fuck down there, whip it around, quick goal. So I don't know. The overtime was I feel like a tennis match. It was like anyone watching on YouTube. There's a lot back and forth, just up and down that field. So it was incredible, but I do agree with you about OT.
Yeah, I just thought that they took just a little too long. Like I think, like they waited until like the last possible point that they could take a shot was with like 1 second left on the clock. Like even if they got a shot off, like the only time that they could have like got it would have been like the final second. Yeah. Like I just think like dude, like push it. Get a shot at like 5 seconds, see if you can like kind of, if something happened, then you have like one last chance to just throw your little Hail Mary in there. And if Krebs makes a great save and he's able to just launch it downfield and somehow Matt Rambo ends up with the ball on a stick and it goes in the back, like in 5 seconds, that's pretty tough. So like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of teams just, I get valuing wanting to take the final shot. But I just don't know if we figured out in lacrosse like the right time to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
would the Atlas have won with Timmy Troutner in it?
I mean, you got to wonder.
You
really got to wonder. I mean,
I'm shocked that nobody tried to say that last night.
What was it? Entenmann's final stat line really wasn't great. I mean, he's unbelievable, but we touched on that 48-50% number last week a little bit, Dukes, and he's at
but I also talked to you about this. Like I don't think you could percentage watch too much. Like how many saves did he have? How many saves did he have?
9
saves. I mean he
didn't get a lot of shots on net. And you'd have to probably look goal by goal at that point. Like what kind of shots were going in? Were they inside? And I know that like I was pretty boozed up, so it wasn't like I didn't rewatch the game yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to dive through.
There wasn't any point of the game where I was like, wow, like Entenmann's blowing this.
I'm shocked by the 42% because at the end of the game, especially, it was like, wow, what a game he's playing. Like some of the saves.
There were definitely parts though where you're like, maybe you expect Entenmann to kind of steal you a couple more than he did. Like I don't think it wasn't a game where you're like, wow, like Entenmann really let the Whip Snakes climb back into that one and like yada yada yada. But it wasn't one that you leave being like, wow, that's why Liam Entenmann is a top 3 goalie on the planet.
Yeah, I remember the save that he had with less than a minute to go. I was like, holy hell, he's a gamer.
Yeah, the kind of the bouncer that hit. I don't know if he got the butt end of a stick on it or if it kind of caught him right under the armpit. But yeah, it was. I mean, that was a big save. Like that's one of those saves where you're like, yeah, he's a great goalie. But I mean, credit to Krebs. I thought, those first. I mean, that whole first quarter, very few of those goals were like, even the Teat one. The Teat one was a laser. But there were some of those where you're like, all right, like this kid's rattled right now. And against a highly powered offense like the Atlas, the fact that he was able to kind of lock in and then cleaned it up the rest of the way, had a couple saves in overtime, huge. Listen, let's real quick though, because we're 15 minutes into this episode. We haven't mentioned his name yet. Levi Anderson. Anderson, owner of one of the most devastatingly brutal swim dodges in all of lacrosse. I mean, this kid has made a living with that swim dodge. He made a living with it at St. Joe's. I'm sure that he makes a living with it in box as well. But last night, 2 swims over a short stick, dip and dunk. His third goal, not the third goal, but the other goal that he had was also a bomb. What a night out of Levi Anderson. St. Joe's product, good old boy from Canada, gets the game winner, sends the Whip Smack to their 4th championship game. So what do you guys think about the rookie? Also, what do we think about that trade now? So
Staggs is GM coach of the year. And if anybody has any different thought, I don't know what to tell you.
Between the Levi Anderson pickup, the Ryan Conrad pickup, making the switch over to Krebs. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to give that nod to anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, I think that sorry, Nestor. It's like also when it's like just because he didn't, you give it to Pressler for underachieving last year with great, like the talent that he had, he just underachieved with. Now him and the talent get the number 1 seed. They don't make the championship. Staggs does. Everyone counted out the Whips in the beginning of the year. You can't just say like same old Whips.
I agree 100%. I mean,
I think that my baseline for the Whips was like, I think they'll make the playoffs. Like I was like, I think they're going to be in the 6-4 range. And then in the last couple of weeks, we just saw what they were able to do. It's very impressive.
I mean, what does that make for them now? 6 wins in a row or 7?
I think it's 6.
Yeah.
I think. And like if you do like time wise, like with the buys and the second buy, like their buys and the buys, it's been almost like 2.5 months. Like it's been a really long time since they lost a lacrosse game. I'll go and get the last.
They lost they haven't lost in July 6th.
So July 9th. So July. Yeah. 19th.
They lost to Carolina in Fairfield.
Yeah. So basically two full months. Almost. But yeah, I just think that just getting Anderson and getting him without him. I mean, I don't know how much like practicing. I don't know how much playing he does behind the scenes with the team, but getting him before he even has a chance to show the Woods what he can do makes it even more of a steal. Because like the Woods clearly they didn't value him the way they should have, and he just came to the Whipsnakes and absolutely puts on a show. And then in the biggest moment of the entire season thus far, he shows up. And I just think right then and there, it's like you can't ask for much more out of a rookie. You really can't. He's been relatively consistent, flashes of great plays, and then shows up in the biggest moment of the season. So I think that's a massive, massive win on the trade for the Snakes. And the Woods are fucking still watching the games on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I was really high. I think we were probably all pretty high on Levi Anderson when he was getting drafted. Thought, definitely a steal of the draft. Anyone who watched him, especially that St. Joe's Yale game in the tournament a couple seasons ago, like that. I mean, the run that St. Joe's team went on, like you're watching this Levi Anderson guy, unreal highlights coming out of Hawk Hill. So good pickup in the draft, and I think bringing him to the Whips and having him play, especially with Rambo too, has been huge for him. I'm seeing some Instagram stories during the week of, so I guess, maybe Rambo was back in Philly, Levi Anderson probably still living in Philly, maybe. So you saw them working out and shooting together. So I'm sure that that's also been helping his game. You get to learn from one of the best to ever do it in the PLL. Also huge goal out of Rambo to tie that game up 11-11 in regulation. So definitely still, listen, Jeff Teat put on a historic showing this season. Greatest season that we've seen in the league so far, but Matt Rambo just kind of showed everyone like, hey, I'm still here, and as long as I'm still here, the league will still run through me. So good for him. He'll be making another trip to Philly for Championship Sunday. The team that they'll be playing, Utah Archers, making it back to the championship for the second year in a row. This now follows the same pattern that we've seen. All the winner of the championship in the PLL consistently makes it back to the final the next year. Only team to win back-to-back was going to be the Whip Snakes, so they're back at it again. But Whips 3 years in a row. Chaos go back after winning. They lose. Water Dogs go back after they lose to the Archers. So now Archers back in the final. Archers versus Whip Snakes. And my God, it's really hard for me to call this a bad game, because as much as it hurt to watch the Chaos just not able to do a goddamn thing the entire night, like a couple goals, like listen, Blaze Reardon, best goalie on the planet. Couple of the goals that he let in, not very Blaze-like. A couple chances that the Chaos had to get on the board early, just either, piss the ball away, trying to force feed the Crease, or if they got a good look, they just took a terrible shot. They couldn't get a single thing going, and it was painful to watch for the longest time. But then as it kept going, you're like, oh my God, like, are we going to see a shut? Like, is this actually going to happen? Do we have a shutout going on here? You guys were at the game, so you didn't get a chance to hear it, but the broadcast team was doing their damnedest to curse that thing. They were talking about a shutout. I don't know if the word shutout was actually said, but they were talking about it since the start of the fourth quarter.
Someone tweeted about it from one of the league accounts. I don't know if it was a PLL or if it was
you have to start, but you do have to start talking about it. If you're the PLL, to get eyeballs on a fucking 10-1 game.
No, you can't. You can't.
Well, you know what though? There are always the ESPN alerts. There are always the ESPN alerts. Like if a pitcher has a no-hitter going, or if a pitcher has a perfect game going, like there is always the alert. But yeah, the PLL app sent out an alert saying that Dobson was about to have a shutout. And then 56 seconds left, Zach Geddes scores, breaks the shutout. But still, greatest defensive showing that we've seen in the PLL so far. Brett Dobson and the boys locking down the Chaos to just one goal. Ness, you and I talked about this. I'm sure that Dukes, you've talked about it as well. I mean, that Chaos offense was just not great all year long. They were fortunate enough to be able to shut down the Cannons offense last week. They probably overachieved a little bit by scoring 8 goals. This time, I mean, that Archers offense, you're not stopping them. You're not going to be able to be so slow to slide, especially to a guy like Granament, who is back to peak Granament form. Unreal night out of him, and he seemed to be playing. He seemed to be playing with a lot more edge than I'd say the most edge that we've seen out of him so far. He'll play with a lot of edge. A lot of times he's a shorter guy, a short Philly guys all have Napoleon things going on. So he always has a little bit of an edge, but like that was kind of the most that we've seen out of him. And I think that that's just kind of backlogged from the, couple years of just being a little frustrated with injuries and shit like that. And, just taking over, being like, all right, we're getting back to the championship game. So your guys' thoughts on the almost shutout, your thoughts on the Archers going back to the championship, and your thoughts on the Chaos just getting that offense just getting dick smacked.
Just one of the most boring lacrosse games I've ever seen in my life. After one of the most exciting. But yeah, you kind of knew the story on the Chaos's offense. It's just very inconsistent, ups and downs all year long. Especially towards the end of the season, I feel like they really started to not have it figured out. But again, like you can kind of expect with a playoff guy, a playoff performer like Blaze, this chaos defense, that if you're an offense and you get to 8 goals, you can maybe expect Blaze to win you the game. So that was kind of the mentality going in. But Dobson's one of those guys that also in the playoffs, in these moments, he knows how to step up and play his best. So he played one hell of a game. I was kind of rooting for the perfect game at one point.
Yeah, I think one thing I realized watching the game unfold was Rabel kept like hinting at like he kept calling it a perfect game. And that's when I kind of realized this is way less of like a shutout as far as like hockey's concerned, and like way closer to pitching a perfect game in baseball, where it's like this is not like an achievable feat that's going to be achieved again or come close to being done again. So when it got closer, I was rooting for that perfect game so bad, and it got like cooler and cooler, and he kept making saves. And then I love Mac O'Keefe. He shot the ball with like 43 seconds on the shot clock, and I think someone said something to him after the game, and he was like, "Yeah, that was my bad." I mean, I guess you kind of black out at a certain point, but you got to pull that ball to X for your boy on the other end. They could have given the ball back to the Chaos with like 15 seconds left if they just ran the clock. So it's tough to go out like that, but it was cool to watch. Like Jordy said, it wasn't a good game in a sense like, oh, this is like a good battle. It was like, oh, well, this game's not great because it's a blowout, but holy shit, they can't score this guy. I mean, the final tally was 18 saves, 1 goal allowed, 94% save percentage. That's
Yeah,
just
it wasn't a good lacrosse game by any stretch, but it got interesting down the stretch, and I was rooting for it the whole time. I was like, this is going to be incredible. I was especially rooting for it a lot of because of the way that the Chaos social media team was handling themselves after the win last week. Would have just been phenomenal to see them have to, and yeah, they had their tails tucked between their legs regardless, but it would have been so funny for them to be so loud on social after that win last week, only to get followed up by the first shutout in, I think it was pro lacrosse history.
Yeah,
There's no way you have a group of professional lacrosse players out there in no time. They don't score once, and we came 56 seconds away from seeing that last night.
Did you guys see what the Chaos? So the Chaos social media team had to go last weekend, obviously just clowning the Cannons. Did you see what they put out when they scored? I'm trying to see if it's still up. They put out when they scored, they were like, we finally scored, we did it, like we can score. I don't think it's up anymore. Yeah, I don't think it's up. They're like making a joke about how they scored. I was like, dude, if I'm a player on that team, that would piss me off so much because they were like clowning their own team. Like, we did it, we scored, like a ton of exclamation points. I was like, I don't know, man. That would if I just got fucking shellacked in a playoff game and I just like opened my phone and my own team's account is clowning us now. Like, what the fuck is this? It's interesting. I'm gonna have to do a little digging to see if that's still up, but I didn't check back in to see if anyone got on them for that.
It's up.
It's up. Oh, we did it. We scored. Zach, yeah.
Give the social media managers a little break over there, Nesty.
Me?
They're just trying to get they're just trying to get a little some clicks and do their job. I think they're like I get mad at people like the lacrosse people that get so mad at like fucking like PLL interns or PLL employees that run these accounts that like their whole job is to get clicks and engagement and interactions. I'm probably more sympathetic to it because it is my job. Like, so it's just like when I see people online being like, why are they doing this? Do you know how hard it must have been for this fucking social? Like, I'm watching a 10-0 game, and then all of a sudden it's like, you gonna get mad at me? Do you know how mad I'm fucking at you that you can't score goals and I can't get like interactions? Like last week, I just had a career day online because you guys won. Now you didn't do your job. Now I have to fucking clown you guys. They didn't want to do that.
All right, hand up, hat off.
Justice for social media managers.
That's very fair.
But I do think.
But yes, I would be just.
But you can't go, and you just can't do the stick talk dunk that they did last week,
100%.
and then follow. It's just one of those ones where they open themselves up to it. They threw that first punch, and now everyone else, if they so choose, deserves to punch back.
Yeah, I didn't have.
That's the danger. That's a social media game. That's a social media manager. Everyone has their different approach to how they go with online wars. I would have not have done it the approach that they did. You better have the fucking. Wow, I couldn't even think of a team. I can't even think of a good team right now. I was gonna say the 86 Mets. I don't know why. You better have the 86 Mets to talk how they did. After the game last week. Like, did they just not consider that they have like 2 more games left? Like, at least make the championship. If you lose in the championship, it's like, all right, whatever. At least we made it. But to be that loud after quarterfinals is kind of crazy in retrospect.
Jordy and I touched on it. Like, it wasn't that people were counting out the Chaos. It's like they didn't give us a reason to count them in. Like we touched on that last week. Like, they're a good team. but they're certainly not. They're not as good as. There's a reason people like talk about the way they do is because they're going to come out and put up one fucking goal in a playoff game. Again, I'm not trying to like be like the Chaos suck, but they certainly aren't a top 3 team in the league, and they're definitely not top 2 now. I mean, we saw that for damn sure. So I don't know. It's just interesting, but I do hand up. I want no clown the social media interns or whoever runs it. Don't come at me. Not the Nestle don't know shit show.
Yeah. As far as the Archers go, like, good to see. Grant obviously had a great game. Goal, a couple good looks. They didn't look like the second half was a little dicey, and I don't know if that's just you go into halftime up 9-0, and you're like, all right, like we're kind of in cruise control. Weather didn't look great, so like I don't know how engaged they were for that second half, but either way, second half wasn't very inspiring. I do think though that there is such a thing, like you only have so many goals in the tank, right? And you're already up 9-0. Like you don't want to go out there, you don't want to put up like 17 and win like 17-1, 17-2, and then you show up in the championship game and you're like, damn, we wasted all of our goals in the semifinal. So I don't mind leaving a little extra gas in the tank and not unloading the clip in the second half there. But second half offense was just a little, a little too. They just didn't get great looks, but the goal that Matt Moore scored though in the fourth quarter, great to see that. Obviously, it looks like he's pretty healthy. That was a nasty backhand goal. So little vintage Matt Moore action there. Ryan Ambler, playing some good ball. So obviously the loss of Schreiber, not one that any team can really make up for, but the Archers still have plenty of weapons out there where they can. I don't think that they're going to get into a point where they need to put up, 12, 13 goals against the Whip Snakes. Like I think it's probably going to be, that 10, 11 range will probably get it done either way, whether it's the Whips or the Archers. So we'll talk about that in a second, but I don't think that they need to be 100% on offense to get to the level, to get to the goal total where they would need to be to win a championship on Sunday.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's a funny thing to think about though, because like I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I totally agree that like if they do put up a fuck ton of goals, it's like, well, fuck, like you're gonna be able to do that again next week. It's sort of like one of those things that obviously they weren't thinking about while they did it, but just in the juju and the lacrosse gods of the world, I think now they'll be able to.
It happens all the time. And it's not even like we're going to be able to do that next week. It's like, are you going to be able to put up 9 next week?
Yeah.
Score 17 one week. And it's like, all right, like, you're coming back down to reality and you're going to put up 7 the next week and like a lucky 7.
I'm excited.
Should we get into the championship game?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Hey, real quick before that, so championship weekend in Philly. So I believe Saturday what is that going to be? Saturday the 14th. So in the morning, I don't have all the details on me right now. I probably should have pulled this up, but the Headstrong Foundation will be having their run for cancer. It's going to be a 5K. Going on in Swarthmore. So it's kind of right outside of Philly, a little Delco town there. We've got a 5K, our 6th annual Running Ahead of Cancer 5K and 1 mile walk in Swarthmore. That is going to be Saturday, September 14th. Let me see if I can find a time on that. All right, so walk-up registration opens at 5 p.m. So right before that happens, from I believe 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., street lacrosse in Philly. So this is going to be, let's see, if you're coming to Philly for the championship, make sure you get there Saturday sometime in the early afternoon. We've got street lacrosse going on at Dukes. You have the park set up here. I should probably know this as the Philly guy. But Capitolo Playground. It's kind of right over by Jim's and or Pat's and Gino's. Right across the street, actually, from a great bar called Garage. So great spot to grab a drink. not too far from Angelo's Pizzeria. So if you're looking to get the best cheesesteak in Philly, you can head over to Angelo's. It's a quick little, less than a mile away from Angelo's. Unreal pizza. So it's in a great spot in South Philly. Street lacrosse, 2 to 5 p.m. at Capitolo Playground. That's Saturday the 14th. So you got street lacrosse in South Philly. After that, Headstrong Foundation will be having their 5K run for cancer in Swarthmore. And that'll lead us into Sunday. PLL Championship in the Mecca of the lacrosse world. We are heading back to Philly for another championship, 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. We've got the Archers taking on the Whipsnakes. Archers looking to become the first team to repeat since the Whipsnakes did it in 2019-2020. Whipsnakes looking to add to their lead to most championships in the league with their third. It's going to be, I don't know, as right when the Whips were, kind of turned it on there in the quarterfinal game, won that game against the Outlaws, like something, I don't know, like a gust of wind just came across, and it felt to me like it was just going to be one of those years where out of nowhere, the Whipsnakes get the job done, and we're all looking back being like, yep, they are the Yankees of the lacrosse. So, and if you're looking at previous trends of the team that won the championship, going back to the championship to repeat and then losing, it's kind of, I don't know, for me, everything's kind of building up to the Whip. So Dukes, you've got the lines brought up here, courtesy to our friends from DraftKings, hashtag gamble responsibly. Take it away, Dukes.
Yeah, it's Archers are the favorites here, -1.5, but you can get plus money on that. But the money line, it's -120 for the Archers, -110 for the Whips. Over under is 23.5. I would start off by saying I have no idea who's going to win.
Love that.
I picked last night on the Pelkey show that the Archers would win, but that was a strategic thinking process. Like that was to kind of save my own ass. With this, it's really my full analysis. I don't know. I've talked myself into both ways. When I look at what Dobson's able to do when he's been the starter in cage against the Whipsnakes, kind of dominates them. And hasn't particularly been close. I think we've had 2 16-11 games. And then I want to say like a 15-12 game or something. But obviously the Whips have been playing better. Krebs has been playing some great ball. I'm going to go under 23.5 as my bet in this. I don't know if I could take a side comfortably right now without listening to you guys first.
You want to go, Jordy?
Yeah, I mean, I do like the under here. Like I said, a few minutes ago, like I feel like that 10 to 11 is going to get it done, right? So we're looking at maybe an 11-10 game, 11-9 game. Either way, for me, it's just again, like this is just feels right. So I wouldn't necessarily tell people to tail me on this one, right? I don't really have any analytics to back this up, but just the way that it just feels like a Whipsnakes championship year right now, the way that everything's kind of played out, the way that they're winning these games, right? Like these are a couple like they're playing some real playoff lacrosse right now. Game against the Outlaws wasn't necessarily pretty, but they got the job done. Win against the Atlas was a huge kind of come from behind. Yeah, it was a come from. They were down 11-8 at some point in the fourth quarter. So a good come from behind win against the best team in the league to win in overtime. So they're playoff tested, they're playoff ready. The Archers had a bye week in the quarterfinals, and then for all intents and purposes, last night was a bye week as well with the 10-1 win over the Chaos. So thanks for coming out, Chouse. So I just feel like the Whips are kind of built for this, and also. I know Grant Ament, he's a Philly guy as well. I know Coach Resch, he's a Philly guy. So I'm kind of rooting for those guys. But when you bring Matt Rambo to Philly, great things happen, and I'll just never, ever, ever bet against Rambo when he's playing in Philly. He always makes something happen. This is his city, and as we saw last night, it's still his league. So I'm taking the Whips in this one. So I'd say Whips probably 11-10.
I'm also taking the Maryland Whip Snakes, and two main reasons. One, again, hottest team in lacrosse. They're having so much fun. They love it. They're just great vibes. They're oozing vibes on the Maryland Whip Snakes. Second reason, former Cabrini defensive coach P.T. Ritchie is the assistant coach for the Maryland Whip Snakes. He's coming home to Philly. He's a Philly guy. Listen, he played a lot of years in professional lacrosse for the MLL. I don't know if he played. I think he might have done a year or two in the PLL. He knows his ball. Love having him be in charge of the defense. Krebs is just, when he finds it, he finds it. I mentioned earlier how they only scored 2 goals, put the ball in twice in the fourth. After the first quarter, they only put the ball in the goal 4 times the rest of the game. So Krebs coming off a good, great end of the game heater. And I just like those Snakes. It's not that I don't like the Archers. I just think the Whip Snakes vibes and P.T. Ritchie and Krebs. So, and Rambo always shows up. We always fucking.
And also, let me just say, we are due for a Zed Williams game. We haven't had one yet in the playoffs. Two good games from the Whips, and I think Zed has 1 goal in it. So it's only a matter of time before he has a game. At least he has a quarter that he completely takes over, and we haven't had one of those yet. So that's still in the back pocket, waiting for the Whips.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for this. In the past couple of weeks, for this Archers attack to really.
You know what? We kind of need you to take the Archers though, or else that's going to be a tough graphic for us.
Social media nightmare.
Yeah, we're gonna get fucking dunked on by someone.
Can I be even more honest? I don't want to pick a team because I get awkward where it's like public information, like, oh, he took X team, and then like you try to go to like the end of the season party at the end of the game, and it's like, like I don't really actually care who. Like I don't have like last year was like I was pretty open, like I want the Water Dogs to win. I don't care who wins this game.
Yeah, but I'm worried that you've already. I know because I was there that you strategically picked the Archers, but you're gonna have like, are the Maryland guys gonna accept that and be open arms if they win for you? Because you know that, especially you had Heacock and Rambo on last week, they know you're on the Archers now. But as a Dukes truther, he did it. It was a smart play. Dukes doesn't have to do a shoey. It's a genius. But I don't know if they'll see it that way. I'm worried you might already be in there, so you might just have to fucking double down on the Archers.
I don't think it matters. It was more so.
I would also like it on the record that I don't give a shit who wins. I just want a good game. But I'll never bet against Rambo and Philly. That's my one.
That's where I would say I lean to that more, and I think that for my pick, I'm trying to go a little contrarian. Like it's just based off that. I'm probably rooting for the Whip Snakes though.
Wow, Archers are going to be after your ass.
But I think the Archers.
Don't let this guy in the locker room after the game.
You see what I just did there? I think I'm rooting for
little Stephen A. Smith take both sides.
I think that the Archers will win, but I'll be rooting for the Whip Snakes.
All right, we'll see we'll see.
I think that the Whip Snakes are going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Archers pull it off.
You can't count out the Atlas. Best team to be.
Listen, if one team can get it done, it's got to be the Water Dogs on Sunday.
Best team in lacrosse to come back from adversity. Which team does that? Do any teams ever cursed?
Cannon's.
Dude, what the fuck is that? Like, you're just gonna out of nowhere, 43 minutes into the episode, you're just gonna pull that out of your ass just to make me upset? No, there's no curse championship weekend again. Like, hand up. It doesn't feel great.
Was there a curse in the championship last year?
No. Or the year, but actually, Connor Kirst won one with the Whip Snakes, so not last year, but when they did win one.
Do we think it's a little weird that the Cannons just completely fell apart in the playoffs, like kind of as Ness stopped doing Curse of the Week? We haven't had any Curse of the Week lately, and he stopped doing it. There were some
trademark issues with Curse of the Week. No, I'm just kidding. We got to bring it back. That's
how I thought there was.
I might have to shoulder the blame for the Cannons, and everyone has to do their part. And if I didn't do mine, I apologize. Curse of the Week will be back though. Don't count it out.
Who's your curse?
Curse of the Week this week? Brett Dobson. Easy. What'd you say?
I was wondering if it was him.
Yeah,
I was wondering why All right. Surprised it wasn't a cursed.
My curse of the week would have been Sammy Adams.
Yeah.
Honorable
Sam.
mention, Sammy A. Sammy, I'll send you a T-shirt if you made it 44 minutes into this episode. Sammy Adams, confirmed Crease Dive listener. You're allowed to lie in this podcast. I'll do whatever I want.
Well, all right. The whole gang will be at Philly for this championship game. So if you guys are going to be there, let us know. We'll be just cruising all throughout. Just check the weather. It should be a whole lot nicer than it was last year. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Last year ruined a real nice pair of white shoes just walking through absolute slop in the rain. So should have some good weather on deck in Philly on Sunday. Should have a great game on deck as well. Make sure that you are subscribed to us and following us on all forms of social. We're at the Crease Dive on Twitter and Instagram, Stool Crease Dive on TikTok. Make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube on Rumble. Make sure that you're following it or subscribe to us on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify. Coming down the last game of the field lacrosse year. It's been a long ride, so let's try to help out the boys. The boys have been grinding for you ever since the start of the college season, and we're coming down to the final one. So the least you could do is subscribe and follow. Love all you guys, and in the meantime, we'll be keeping it low to high to the day we die. We out.